think she should have made coffee for your birthday. She ordered cupcakes. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you. All right.
Thanks, Karen.
Annual budget meeting. Come back into session from recess. And
Does everybody have their mics on?
on the
Check 1, 2. I'm about to
On
rap
the,
for you.
on the agenda, first thing is Parks Department. Looks like we're well represented. And trying to get a feel for everybody's budget looking forward to next year. So, Adam, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I know we only got 30 minutes, so we'll breeze through as much as we can, as quickly as possible. First and foremost,
You have all the time you want. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, is that a filibuster? Just to start out, our people are most important. I'll start with those first. A few years running now, we've asked for the Griffin Bike Park manager position to be out of our 1219, our tax funded. We asked for that again this year. That position, really important position for our department, really department-wide, county-wide at this point. That being a tax-justified position, Griffin Bike Park brings in tons and tons of visitors. We've had car counters on there, and through programming opportunities that park brings in, actually almost 50% of the visitors are out of county, is what we're seeing. The bike park is bringing in tremendous amount of traffic, 19,987 cars from out of the county in 2019. That's a lot of traffic from outside of the county, and using the statistics and everything that you're supposed to use in the Parks Department, we estimate $1.299 million put back into the county from the Griffin Bike Park alone. That's not through our department, but from the Griffin Bike Park. If you drive around southern Vigo County, you'll see bikes going to the Griffin Bike Park. Not just southern Vigo County, all of Vigo County at this point. But all of those people are eating, sleeping, using our revenue stream in Vigo County. That's not the only reason to have the Griffin Bike Park manager. If it was not for that position, there is no way that I can possibly help manage the Griffin Bike Park. He not only runs all of the races and everything that everybody knows and sees, he helps oversee the projects and things out there at the bike park as well. He lives and breathes in that position. I say he because I know Rich very well, but that position spends 7 days a week this time of year at that park. So to make that one of the best parks in the nation, we have professional riders that come out there and participate in our races. One recently said they were going to come beat the racers at Griffin Bike Park. They placed fourth. So we have top-notch people involved in that program. So a very prominent part that it's due time to have that position systematically in our system. Really important to have that position tax justified. I preface all this by saying I understand your guys' position as well. With economics the way they are, it's my job to present to you what our department needs. So I understand working with everybody, working with commissioners, working with council, what everybody needs, what our department needs. But Griffin Bike Park Manager is an asset to our community. The Griffin Bike Park is an asset to our community and our department. Moving on to the year-round part-time maintenance position. That was an added position. We're in desperate need of maintenance through the department. The year-round part-time, I told the council last year, we'll be trying some new things. We've been asking for full-time maintenance for several years. Again, I know the position that you guys are in and how difficult it is to try to fund positions with all the attachments. Part-time is a little easier. For us to try to keep part-time year-round, at least they know they have that position. We don't have to let them go in October and try to bring them back again in May. Those positions have been easier to keep, fill, and train. Would we rather have full-time people? Yeah. But in lieu of full-time positions, asking for that part-time year-round to try to help fill in some of those voids we have. We have Rugal Park that's coming up here, and you guys can be some of the first to know. We're going to have to put off Rugal Park opening. We've been in discussion with Ivy Tech. Ivy Tech's putting off all in-person activities. That was our main head trail, a restroom facility, and to be honest with you, we are sorely behind after March through May shutdown and looming possible other things coming. We just can't get Rural Park open by September. That doesn't mean we still don't have to go out and build the thing. So lots and lots of maintenance, lots of building, and we still have to go out and maintain that park once it's open. So you guys have a schedule in front of you. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but that part-time individual will help fill in. We have 2 full-time maintenance staff at Prairie Creek Park. Prairie Creek Park is probably who will go mow that park system once it's open. That part-time year-round individual would float over to that park to help fill in while those people are gone maintaining that park, or they themselves will go maintain that park. We don't have that capability right now. We don't have the number of people to be able to go do that. Not to mention the connector trail coming from West Terre Haute to Terre Haute. That is going to be, and I don't know if anybody really realizes the realm that we're going to be in once that actually opens. That's going to be a wonderful opportunity for our park system. That's going to be a lot of people. To be able to go from downtown Terre Haute to the Wabashiki wetlands on that 10-foot wide boardwalk along the wetlands, that's a lot of people flooding into our park system. And we have one part-time person at like about 1,000 hours a year trying to maintain that whole system over there right now. That's Lee Field, South 7th, Dewey Point, the entire trail system. To up their hours a couple hours, have this person float over and help them, that's going to be help, to say the least. So that's what's helping offset some of this, and I'm kind of going off my notes just because that's what we need. But and then moving on to we are progressing on to the need of that West Terre Haute shop. We don't need a lot of new buildings. Our operational costs, we know where our meter is for our parks department. We know that with our tax base and where we are, we don't want to push that meter any further than we have to. We're working with partnerships that if we do acquire any new facility in West Terre Haute, we work with different entities to help pay for some of those operational costs. But we're 30 minutes away from West Terre Haute, almost anywhere we come from. Hawthorne Park, Fowler Park. With all of these people flooding into this area, we need to be able to better maintain that area. So having a shop building, a small one, even a seasonal shop in West Terre Haute is going to be huge for us to be able to maintain that area. So get out there more often, maintain the trail system, maintain Dewey Point, take one of the part-time people and pair them with a full-time staff member seasonally over there, and have a piece of equipment over there. Right now we have a gator and a weed eater pretty much, and that's all we have in West Terre Haute. So to be able to shift that over there, that really satisfies a 5-year plan. And that's what we want to convey to you today is there's light at the end of the tunnel, that these are things that will get us through several years. This is not, well, we're just gonna chip off and hope maybe we can live through. We will do well with what we're presenting.
Have you spoke to the owners of that property just west of where Wabashiki is, or Dewey Point? Right now, Bill Wolf's in there, that artist that does all the statues.
I've personally not.
It'd be a great building to have right there.
I've heard of discussions, but I've not.
Well, I know he just rents it. I can't remember who owns that property, but that'd be the way to go, right on the other side.
Yeah.
And especially if you could have or develop partnerships to help you maintain and pay for it.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
People's logos on the front of the building or something.
I am open to partnerships and ways to operate.
The numbers that you gave about Griffin Bike Park, was that over a year? Or was that
Sorry?
like the numbers that you gave for Griffin Bike Park, the nearly 20,000 cars visited? Was that over a year, 1 year, or
The 19,000 some.
That's just out of the county.
just, okay.
Read that number again, would you?
19,987 cars from out of the county.
Wow.
49,968 on the car counter for 2019. 50,000 cars. That's a lot of visitors. Bono Road, if you're familiar, next to Fowler Park, that is, I mean, a car every minute or two, it seems like, coming down that road. A lot of traffic, 50,000 cars, 20,000 of them out of the county. 50%, almost half of our racers are from out of the county. To finish up some of our personnel, I'm trying to do this as fast as I can. To finish up some of our personnel, a new request that our department's never requested before, the grants coordinator. And that's a position that I felt like could bring some of this opportunity into our department to be able to bring money in. Was an opportunity that we're missing out on. I've worked with the auditor's office trying to bring around our grants from where we were as a department. Currently, it's a lot of work to work on grants and the grants that you should go for and where you should be and just the processing of those grants. There's grants out there that are wonderful. You got to know which ones to go for, which ones are the right ones for your department, and then see those grants through and all the way through. That's a full-time job. That's a full-time job for these guys. But to have somebody to find those grants and bring them in, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table just for our department, for historic signage and for rental bikes and for you name it. I don't have the time not to go through the correct process to bring it to you guys and to make sure we get approval, to make sure we're in step with the auditor's office and to bring it through. To have somebody to come in and learn our process, try to get that through. I think that's definitely worthwhile exploring.
Are you talking about a part-time position or like a
Right.
contractual service?
Part-time is what we're asking for, to try to bring them in, train them on our process, and start finding grants for our department. Before I leave our personnel, I wanted to point out as well the total change in hours. Previously in our department for a while, as far as I can tell, our department had went on attrition and vacant positions to fill some of our hours. When I got in, I looked at the number of hours assigned. What you guys approved is what these schedules are based on. We gave you guys two different schedules. The one that we have this year, 16,924 hours, and the one we hope to obtain next year. What you guys approve come October is the schedule that we'll assign in January. We don't go by vacant positions next year or attrition or anything like that. The number of hours you guys assign or the money that boils down to is the schedule we'll go by. So if you guys don't approve, I'm going to pick one, a grants coordinator at that number of hours, we deduct that number of hours off that total. Essentially, it's a pool of hours. Is how we can look at it. So when I go to look at our number, and if we know that we didn't, I just wanted to make sure, because there are additional hours. We have a maintenance employee that was under hours. The West Terre Haute maintenance person was not at 1508. That's 29 hours a week. They were under that. And we wanted to bring them up to that 29 hours. That needs to be said, I guess, to make sure that we're all on the same page, that these hours are what we're asking for, and if it's anything less than that, that's what we're going off of in January.
I'm sorry, Adam, where that you're asking us to, where's that?
The total is, you got two sheets,
Oh,
these two
okay.
here.
Oh, gotcha.
There's the total number of hours, 21,180. That's the total of everything we're approved. We got our grants coordinator, our part-time maintenance, and the extra hours. That's everything. If we got nothing, we'd still be at 16,924.
Councilman Morris?
Yeah.
Can I say something to this while Adam's on that?
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to what I talked about yesterday with part-time. When you increase the salary,
Yeah.
like you did to the $12 an hour,
Yeah.
sometimes the hours that you're taking into consideration, like if we didn't add, you didn't say add more hours, when you increase the salary, what you're doing is reduce their hours a little bit for the part-time. So that's why I asked that those departments that have part-time people like this and extension and all them that have several,
Yeah.
that we are truly breaking it down or
Dollar
stating
figure.
that we are giving you this many part-time hours. In all honesty, it'd be better if you just said on our part, instead of these 144s trying to break it down on, like he has. I mean, he's got it broke down. They can
Right.
track it.
Right.
Less than 20. But that we say, we are giving you this many hours of part-time at the $12 rate. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. I think that's where he's kind of going. It's happened the last couple of years.
Yep.
Just to something for the council to consider that Julian and I have discussed how many times. It would be wonderful for those departments that you just say, this department gets this many hours of part-time based on their needs at the $12 an hour. And we know that they all keep them under 29 hours. I mean, we all monitor that. So when you're
It get
doing,
lost in translation.
yes, it does. So when you're doing budgets, kind of keep that in mind, if you would.
Good point. Thanks for
So-
clarifying that.
So giving an increase to part-time employees to $12 an hour didn't automatically result in an understanding that that's also a budget increase for $12 an hour times whatever they need. Is that what you're saying?
It does, because when we calculated them, didn't it, based on some of their hours, it didn't really, it kind of affects the hours in it.
I think the problem is that, like on this one, they were not using part-time hours for their part-time. They were using some, like if they had vacancies, that's how they were funding some of their part-time people. So even if we said, okay, what we have you showing as number of hours, and we multiplied that by 12, so that's your new budget, but because they weren't using all part-time help to
It
to staff
restricted.
it,
Okay.
it still created a problem, especially when they don't have vacancies.
Okay, so that wasn't directly related to the increase
No,
to
but
$12 an hour, but it was an outcome of
I-
the way that they've been funding their part-time employees.
And I really think that it would just be better for everyone, don't you, Julian, if we say, this is what you get for part-time, this
That-
many hours.
And that's
Well-
what he's saying. It was lost in translation.
Yeah, we talked about it before. It's a pool of hours. You know what you have, and that's what I'm saying with this schedule. If you say you've got this many hours, I can base
And
this
didn't we
schedule on
discuss
that
about
many
actually
hours.
putting in a separate line for salary?
And then you would not make a separate decision to use vacancy dollars to hire a part-time person. You would not do that.
You have to
'Cause
hire a
then we're in the
part-time person
same-
next to- and
Then
next
that
to
creates the
them.
same situation we just described, which I don't know what to, I don't know what to do about
They
that.
have the ability to do that if
Okay.
they have vacant
you think?
hours, but if you're not necessarily funding that part-time,
Right.
you know, you're saying, we're not gonna increase your part-time hours because you're using vacancies. But this is what's approved in
Yeah,
number, and
yeah.
the funding, we're, this many hours at $12, that's the funding for approved. And if they choose, they can do part-time, we'll just say 10 part-timers for a year and get, to your total of what was appropriate, that's fine. Or if they say, you know what, we wanna do 20 and work them all half as much. You don't, I mean, or as far as a council, you don't care, it's
Right.
the number, a block of hours that you're,
Right.
and as to Cheryl's point, it's just that it's real clear. I mean, I know that in the past, the Parks Department has wanted theirs very well defined. It's this many for gatekeepers, this many hours for, you know, they want everything out there, which
And I think that should be
from the
them.
auditor's office and the council, we don't care.
Right.
We just say, here's your block of time that you have, and, you know, you make it work, whether it's a gatekeeper or a maintenance person. We don't care. But it's $12 an hour.
And in all honesty, if you wanted to set it up, I know that you really said don't care, but if you wanted to set it up to say, we are giving you this much for part-time, we could in the future, to make things more clear, make a separate salary line item for part-time, and they are paid out of that line item, then you know that those people are part-time. That's what you're using. I mean,
Two
if it's a
payroll
series one, you could still transfer it into the other one. If it's an in-series, if you're falling short, something happens. But you could possibly do that if you chose. So if you wanted to say he gets this many hours, which equates to this much funding, $12 an hour, we could do it instead of 100101010, one of the salary line items, and pay him out of that.
Okay.
Just a thought, just putting it out there for you guys to consider.
Is that another solution to making it really easy?
Well, I think it gives a little more clearer picture, and payroll even,
Yeah.
when people are asking, it gives a little more clearer picture.
So Adam,
As to what is part-time, what's full-time, I mean, we have a marked part-time, full-time, but
Well, when we get to the point when we do the budget, you know, we'll clarify that.
I'm
It'll
just
be
kind of throwing that out here while
simplified.
he was discussing it. It was a pretty good time because they're one of the biggest departments that
Right.
have it, so.
Right.
I mean, it's easier for me.
Well, thanks for
If
pointing
you
that
can afford
out.
20,000 hours, great, we can design, that's good.
So you, with the new positions potentially, 21,180 is what you would love to have.
Right.
But if we knock it down to 20 or 19,
I can design this. Right. All right, there's no other, but we have other things to talk about. I've got not a lot of time left, so.
Rolling.
Moving on here, budget lines, going through some of the changes real quick that we didn't change from previous years, and some of them run into 2 and 3 years. Going through some of the lines that have changed, I apologize, the changes that I uploaded to the folder, there were other changes, that I, omitted. So I apologize, there's a couple minor changes. Office supplies, we'd actually asked for $500 more in office supplies. Yeah, 1219, I'm sorry. In our 1219, for the changes, I was listing out the changes that had happened between 2020 and 2021. There was just a couple minor changes that I didn't list in that for your copy there for other services and charges. Office supplies was a total of $1,500, and chemicals wasn't listed. We actually reduced it to $4,000 to $5,000. Maintenance repair supplies, we'd actually decreased that to offset costs. What we tried hard to do this year was we made a lot of transfers between lines in series, but we wanted to try to make a budget that made more sense. And two of them in here that really stand out to me with service agreements. We were borrowing money out of that in like February, pay for service agreements. We upped it by about $3,000, I think it was, to just pay for our service agreements. It just made more sense. Gas, water, fuel oil, water leaks and things that just reoccurringly cost us more money. We always, every year, always put more money in there. Instead of just transferring that money in there, we asked for that money to be in there. And we took that money from the places we always take it from. So we asked for those decreases in the lines that we always take it from, and we took it from places like equipment repair. We don't repair equipment quite as much as we used to because we had our vehicle replacement plan that as long as we can continue on with some of that, we'll talk about here in a second, we don't anticipate quite as much expense, and we're talking $2,000 or $3,000, not a lot. We won't have to transfer back and forth all the time. So those were some of the changes, minor changes that we've made, some of the decreases and increases there. So it's actually about $2,500 more in those operating costs. Let's see here. I wanted to point out too the reflection of the Griffin Bike Park manager, of course, coming out of the 1219 versus the non-reverting, as an ask that we make every year at this point. If so chosen, that money would go into our non-reverting, replenish that instead of our anything come out of our 1219. Amenity improvements, we actually reduced that by about $17,000 this year by our ask. That was to anticipate some of our COVID-19 losses, and for the fact that we usually on average take out more money than we spend in our non-reverting accounts, which is something our board can do, unless it's a slated project. We felt like we wanted to reduce the amount of money, especially at a time like this, that we were taking out of there unless it's a slated specific project. So we actually asked for $17,000 less out of our non-reverting account, at least for this year, unless it's going to be a slated project. Now, Brian's going to talk about very briefly here our new equipment. I believe you have in your hand as well.
New equipment. So we're asking the same as what we did last year. Is the $60,000. It is very important to us. Several years ago, Adam helped start a vehicle and equipment replacement plan. Before this point, Park System did have a lot of very old equipment. They just continually battled to try to keep this stuff running. So as the two sheets here is, we don't have a whole lot of equipment, but what we do have, we're slowly getting a newer fleet. As you see, most of them are at least in the 2000s now. So that did help greatly. We also started implementing UTVs in the park to help lower the wear and tear on the actual vehicles. Before that point, they were driving trucks everywhere. Now we got the UTVs that saved a lot on actual vehicles. So the replacement plan has saved park a lot of time and money, and just having equipment broke down for long periods at a time. So every year we try to go systematically go through the list you guys have in front of you, and just determine has our needs changed from this year to next year. Right now we're kind of looking into a sidearm mower because we're starting to do more dam maintenance. So does this meet our needs better than the equipment we already have? We also look into the dates and ages of equipment. Some equipment is used more often than others, like a mower. You're constantly using something like that, so it's not going to last as long as maybe a backhoe that we use a couple times a month. So we try to make a decision on when to trade pieces of equipment in. Try to do it when it still has some kind of trade-in value, still in good condition, or start to have great repair. So hopefully, we just continue to keep plugging along on this list. We do have, you can see like a backhoe from 1978. Hopefully at some point in time we're gonna be able to get something a little newer. Right now we do have 2 dump trucks, that are 2001. One of them's the bed stuck up right now. We can't get it back down. So that's the kind of things that they're just are wore out. So I'll try to just keep plugging along and getting stuff replaced. So not only is this important to us by saving us a lot of time and money, just having equipment that you can actually go out and get your job done. Most important, not having this equipment just sitting out there of no use. And we do appreciate having the money to do this replacement too.
All right, quickly moving on to our last piece here, and then I'll open it up for some questions so that you can move on here with your stuff. Our capital improvement plan, we submitted $210,000 for edit request. That was a reduction from previous years. Anticipated losses, as everybody's anticipated losses for a lot of different reasons. We wanted to work with commissioners, council, as we said before. I feel like we've done a wonderful job with what we've done thus far and what we've been able to do with projected projects this year and with next year. With the ask in 2021, we should be able to get water to every campground that we have, Hawthorne, Fowler, and Prairie Creek. We talked about the additional water bill that we keep getting. We get water leaks every month that we don't know where they're at until we see water running on the ground. We're already out a bunch of money. We get water hookups and be able to improve the camping experience along the way, get direct hookups in the campgrounds. That's going to be huge for us. By the end of 2021's plan, we should have new water lines to each one of the campgrounds, direct hookups to select sites. We've already done some of the worst areas already in the parks that we've had previous leaks in the past. And we'll do 2 to 3 other long stretches of water line replacement as well in this plan at Hawthorne Park. Phase 2 of some of this plan is to get out to Fowler Park. While we're there doing that water line replacement plan in the campground, we've got a bead on a rental cabin facility that we'd like to put in. We're already going to be there doing water line replacement plan, get that rental cabin in, get that facility established, and make that a really nice site. Get in there, get it done while we're there doing all that work, so we don't have to backtrack and retrace your steps. Prairie Creek Park, we'd already mentioned the water lines coming in there, get that direct hookup, those water lines in and done, and then accessibility. We keep striving to do better in our parks, getting at least one accessible campsite per park. We have the spots already earmarked in our parks to be able to get those concreted and a pathway to the restroom and those grills out and ready to be able to have at least one fully accessible campsite each park. Quickly, that was running through 2021's plan and asked. That was as quickly as I could run through a whole lot. What can I answer for you for 5 minutes over already? I'm getting looks from behind me here.
You okay, Dave? Okay, all right.
Lucky it's
question?
Dave.
Yeah, I know.
I have no questions. I think, Adam, you've done a great job. My 18 months of being on the council, I think you've done a fantastic job. You've taken into consideration what 2021 may look like and reduced your budget in some areas. So I'm happy about that. See how it goes.
I do think that, our parks, are really becoming, I guess I would have to say, spectacular. Since you've been here, I've heard the word butterfly used more times than I've heard all the rest of the year. That's going to be a really amazing attraction.
Question?
Go ahead.
I don't have any right now.
The transfer of funding for the Griffin Bike Park manager is more, seems to me it's less about what that manager does and more about the alternative uses for that funding. Is that right?
Mhm.
So can you just say a few words about what you won't be able to do if you can't transfer that salary?
Currently, the position's paid out of our non-reverting funds, and that money enables us to be able to go out and do park improvements, things that we're able to do within the parks. That limits our ability by that amount of money to go out and make those improvements.
Right.
That investment in our park system.
Right. So are there critical, are there critical needs in that area? There's about $36,000, right, that's in that salary line. So I see facility improvements, maintenance of trail system, facilities necessary for competitions, community outreach, visitor drawing programs, right?
And that's just specific to the Griffin Bike Park. Yeah.
Right. So what are those, what would happen if you can't spend $36,000 on those types of things for Griffin?
We maintain as we have,
Mhm.
and we get by as we have. It is not of my thought that all of that money would be spent directly on the Griffin Bike Park. So it would be a systematic thing. That money would be, a portion of it would be put back into the Griffin Bike Park, but not every dollar would go back into the Griffin Bike Park.
Okay.
That non-reverting fund replenishment would be spent through the
Across
system.
the board. Okay. Okay.
The Griffin Bike Park has wonderful groups that help support it as well. The Griffin Bike Park manager helps support them. So a portion of that funding would come, help pay for rock the road into the Griffin Bike Park. It's in desperate need of maintenance, but not every dollar is going to go back into just that.
Okay. Okay. And then, do you have any idea, Adam, what the landscape is for grants out there on an annual basis? I mean, I know you can't say you're going to get every grant you apply for, certainly, but there's got to be, you must have sort of the landscape of what grants are available and kind of what you might expect to get out of hiring a person that's going to focus on that. Do you have a ballpark idea of what that could achieve? I mean, I don't know what kind of grants are out there for this kind of stuff. Are they 100,000? Are they 10,000? Are they millions of dollars?
Yeah, there's all kinds of grants out there and all kinds of ability. LWCF funds, hundreds of thousands of dollars out there towards Bicentennial Park. Historic grants to be able to rejuvenate different sites and interpreting signage, you're talking about thousands of dollars. Rental bikes and fleets, and Rich has told me, easily a couple $100,000 worth of investment into the Griffin Bike Park and being able to work through that system. Next Level Trails was a significant amount of money for that grant opportunity that unfortunately right now had to be shut down, but there's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grant opportunities out there, and then broke down specific opportunities per park and per region that we could have opportunity for.
Do we have any mechanism in the county government where we could hire a person whose job would be, whose compensation would be based on a grants person, whose compensation would be based on their getting grants?
Be wanting more of
Is there
like a contract?
Yeah,
instead of
it'd have to be
employee?
some kind of contract. Do we have, it would just be a matter of having a contract person that would work under those terms? Okay. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. President, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about the bike park and so forth, and the people that it does attract, and you know the germination of that park, and the Griffin family, and the publicity it's brought to the community. And you know, I know that David certainly is a big fan, as we all are. The pushback that we get in from the taxpayers is, well, that wasn't supposed to cost the taxpayers any money, you know, and we've got people that'll just come down on us with a ton of bricks to put, you know, to pick up a salary on it. Well, that wasn't supposed to cost us any money. And, you know, it conflicts the council to pay for a salary. You know, and I want to pay Rich. I know how hard he works, and, you know, I don't want to lose any part of that park. And I'm just sitting here trying to think about, you know, this year people have only paid 50% of their taxes, and it's, oh boy, it's tough, you know, and trying to figure out how we can put this together and justify it. And
I think one way to justify it, Vicky, would be to explain to people that 50,000 people showed up there
well, of course, that's true.
and 20,000 were from out of county.
It's
One
absolutely true.
justification I have is, you know, Griffin Bike Park Manager does more than just
Griffin Bike Park. I know
We
that.
use that position through our entire system.
I
That's
do
the way
know
I've
that.
used that position for several, over my year now. He's throughout our entire system, not just specific to the
Well,
Griffin Bike Park.
what I'm thinking about is this would be a good time for you to get a nice story about the park on TV and the newspaper, about that great number of people
Yeah.
who have come to the park, and I'd recommend that you might want to do that right away.
He, as a representative of the Vigo County Parks Department, oversees those construction projects, oversees volunteer groups, you know, participates all through our park system. in
Well,
programming.
it's spectacular. I mean, I
Does
just think it's a
talks through the
spectacular
state of
park.
Indiana, well, nationwide, really, with our NRPA. He's got talks,
And people who are not bikers should go down and see it. I think they should do that.
but yeah, that park is vastly supported by French groups and a lot of support from the community. You're right, it is supported. We don't put extra money into that outside of that one position that we do pay for out of our non-reverting fund.
Right.
Once that position's supported, for 1219, that support is.
Well, I'm an enormous fan. I just, I think if you would maybe gin up some publicity at the budget time right now, that would be very helpful. It's my 2 cents.
Sir.
I'm asking all the departments if our revenue would be some point, seems like revenue streams seem to be uncertain or reduced. Would you, and this is a question to all departments, and would you be prepared to in a reduction in your budget?
No, I don't.
So you wouldn't have any contingency plan for that?
You know, our contingency plan, for example, this year, I talked to Carol, and talked to Melissa both about, we had our new equipment line, for example, money that we need to replace equipment. We had $60,000. We didn't know what COVID-19 was going to do. We didn't want to furlough employees or anything like that, but we didn't know what the losses were going to be, so we held on to that money. Now it looks like, you know, we're going to be okay, so we're looking at trying to spend money now. But I held on to that money in case we got to a point where it looked like we'd have to furlough an employee towards the end of the year. We'd dump that money if we had to. I'd rather keep an employee than buy a backhoe attachment or something. So, or, you know, a dump truck or something like that. So right now, that was my first contingency plan, was to hold on to that money until literally right now, as a buffer, I guess. We had 2 or 3 of those buffers. Do we need it? Absolutely. You know, we need that dump truck is stuck up in the air next to a dumpster. But, you know, I'd rather have to not furlough that employee, rather than trying to do that employee can't. They're not there to drive. So, that was my first contingency plan.
Well, as I say, we're not certain what these things are. What we seem to be certain of is there is a reduction in revenue that's going to come in. And so, again, I'm asking all departments. They're not zeroed out. So,
Obviously, maintenance is something we're in need of. We have 7 full-time maintenance for 3 campgrounds, 3,000 acres, and flood if people come to West Terre Haute. Maintenance definitely is one of our top priorities. And outside of that, it's tough for me to say I'll take a reduction anywhere other than buffers.
The city of Terre Haute just needs to annex into West Terre Haute. They'd be so much better off.
They're coming straight.
Love that West Terre Haute life. We appreciate your time, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. Always be available for questions anytime.
all right, thanks,
I
guys.
don't think I'll make it any better.
Whatever.
It does.
Thanks so much.
You what?
David,
Yeah.
got some
It
time
won't
for
help
us?
with your tax revenues at all.
Oh, Jim. Thanks for making some times for us.
I don't have copies for everyone's here. I didn't know that many were going to be in place.
We need.
Thanks.
Approximately 8 years ago, there was a
I got one you can take.
discussion on, we had considered going on. What that basically means is in 1981, this county council adopted uniform tax legislation that would enact an innkeeper's tax. Well, for years it went through and there were questions and so at some point, Jim and Calissa and Mike Wright, all of us sat down, State Board of Accounts, the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance, Catherine Walter was the attorney's name, she was general counsel. They all came to the conclusion that, and it's written in the code, that basically my board is the sole authority. And so your appointments to my board is your tether to how this is governed. The reason being for that, I mean, you know, here you were just talking to Adam. I'd be interested, I mean, have you been to Griffin Bike Park?
I was there when Vice President or
Okay.
Governor Pence was there,
I was there on Sunday.
and I've taken my
Well,
son on a number of occasions to
Point
the
being,
park.
some have, some haven't through the years, Jim. So if you don't have an innate knowledge of the things that we're out there peddling to the public, it's kind of hard for you to then say you should do this or that. That's the reason, that was kind of the homespun reason for why this declaration was made.
Dave,
Now, that being said, I've always submitted a budget, just kind of as a courtesy. It's still on the county form. And, you know, Mike and Jim and Calissa are probably the only ones that were around back then when that, Cheryl, when that went down. So, you know, I mean, all I can tell you is we've grown for 25 years. March of this year, it fell off the cliff. To give you perspective, now that being said, we've been planning for this day. We have always under-allocated. In fact, our allocations haven't changed much in the last 12 years, and we've done that on purpose, really twofold, to insulate ourselves against any crisis, but more so for the vision to have a convention center or further physical improvements, because what in this business, you reap what you sow. You don't have the facilities, you can't do it. So, you know, that being said, we've got $2.7 million in the bank in an off year. when in April of 2019, we collected a little over $500,000. April of this year was 14,602. So we have a year plus, couple of years that we can weather this storm, so to speak. Goes on longer than that, we've got more problems in tourism, quite frankly. The economic fallout will be such that, you know, parks and courses and venues are just gonna go away because travel won't be allowed. You know, I mean, I had a janitor stop me before I'm coming in here today. If this gets worse, all this is off the table. But
I think what we were trying to do, and this is, and you mentioned the convention center. I think that our property taxes are a stopgap for the bonding of that facility, and you're a pretty big piece of that. And your
we
revenue.
have our $5 million commitment is solid.
Okay, I think that was one of our big concerns.
Yeah.
But you know, your revenue stream, we were just, it is the biggest thing, I think, in our revenue stream. I mean, we're looking at 10% on local income tax by the DLGF.
We're down about 50%, Mike.
Yeah.
We were at 665 as of last Tuesday, and at this time last year, we were a little over 1.1 million.
So I think that's there are some other concerns we had. We knew you guys take the biggest hit of anybody.
No question.
Do you have any updates, Dave, on NCAA championship races or anything like that? Have you talked to anybody or?
Nike, you'll probably see Nike on the front page of the paper the next 2 days. They canned everything.
Did they?
NCAA is probably next in line. Had numerous discussions. Quite frankly, we could run the race. The issue is traveling to get here.
Right.
You're either packing 10 kids in a van. You know, I talked to the D3 coaches, and so 51 kids were to come from one school for a practice. The mandate was they had to take 3 motor coach. No more than 17 could be in a motor coach of 50. Well, not many schools, not especially D3, not many schools can afford that. So transportation to and from is the biggest thing that's being kicked around. My gut is we'll know something in a month once football and basketball have gone through the preseason training. If there's a huge upsurge, they'll take all full sports away, at least the ones that don't make them the big money like basketball. They'll try and figure out something with them. But cross country typically is a cost of each school, certainly D3, and so I'm not optimistic, Chris. I mean, cross country means over $1 million to this community just in innkeeper's tax. You know, it's millions to the hotels, to the restaurants. You know, ask the guy. I mean, Pacesetter's been on the site for the last 10 years because he sells, depending upon, Mike, you know this, depending upon how the turf is that day, you'll have the whole team want to switch out to a longer or shorter spike. And they make that decision 10 minutes for the racing. Well, we have to have the ability to have some contractor on site that can say, you know, okay, coach, there's 140 spikes. There you go. I don't know. You know, this is the darndest thing I've seen in my lifetime. Spent the whole morning with Special Olympics. Their contract's up with ISU. I don't envy them. Nonprofits, you know, county parks, this is the worst time in the world to be operating anything because everybody's hesitant and consumer confidence isn't there. So, you know, one, if you aren't receiving the funding through the taxes on your side, then you're not getting the visitation from the other. you're really taking two hits. And that being said, we've funded Adam and information disbursement through the Indy Boat and Travel Show. We've funded everything having to do with restoring, producing cornmeal from the log that crushes it to the bags that they put in it. Something we did for years, and it went away. In part, the log broke. But Adam's a resourceful young man. He's I call him Keith Rubel Jr. He can wear 7 hats. He's good, and he's one of the future leaders of this community. I hope he sticks around. But we're at a crossroads. If this bleeds into this time next year, it's going to hurt this community in a lot of ways.
But David, it won't hurt just this community. It's
No,
gonna
you're right.
hurt this
It's going to hurt.
country.
Yeah, it's going to hurt the world. Okay? You're right. And so how we come out of this, we're spending as little as possible. We've got, our one big event here to this point is going to be the National Quarter Midget Race, July 28th through August 2nd. If you haven't been to that facility, $1.4 million new facility in town. Wonderful. Got about 100 cars from over 12 states already, and yet there's now discussion within USAC, the sanctioning body, United States Auto Club, about how the differing states protocol will be applied here. That's messy. But that being said, typically that's about 1,000, 1,200 people. They stay here for 6 to 8 days, which is uncommon. We're more in the 2 or 3 day range is our wheelhouse. So, we're in good financial shape at the moment, only because we've been good stewards of this money, at least through my tenure. I think prior to me, there just wasn't enough available to stockpile. From 81 to 95, the highest collection was $262,000. We were $2.5 million last year. And it's not that I'm that smart. It's things have changed. Investment has happened in the community. Our office has partnered with better people, and everything's cycled better.
Well, I do think that you've been an excellent steward out there. I
Well,
know that you work
thank
your,
you, Vicki.
you work your
I take a lot of pride
backside
in
off.
representing my community.
You do a good job.
But this one's tough because it's kind of been removed from our hands. It's nothing that we've done or haven't done, and it is affecting everybody. I've talked to the guy at the Oklahoma State has the Division I this year. Well, he hasn't even put the course together because he's so sure they're not going to have the race.
Well, their governor has a positive COVID too, by the way,
Yeah,
so, not his fault.
It's tough. I don't know. And so your question to Adam was, will you do with less? We have 2 full-time employees that govern this budget and do this. I'm proud of that fact. We're lean, but we do a good job. The return on the dollar for what happens essentially doesn't affect any private citizen in this room. It's people that pass through here, and then it's our job is to parlay that money into somebody having the thought to build a Griffin bike park or a cross-country course or a convention center. That's our role, is to keep the money up and give them the confidence that we can pull this off and prosper even more, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more people we bring in, the more we collect. It's that simple.
Can you speak on if you have somewhat of a dollar amount and what the Terre Haute Quarter Midget Association brings in economically?
Well, historically, and I want to say, I think this is either my 5th or 6th in my tenure, Chris. In the past, it was a hierarchy of races, so you literally had the best kids from 6 to 14 throughout the nation coming. So your clientele was, I don't want to say a little more talented, but it was more of a commitment.
Yeah.
You didn't have the guy So this year's different in that anybody that wants to come to the Nationals that's ran a certain number of races of their local club can come. My guess is going to be, it'll be less than what it's been in the past, but it's still going to be $750,000. I mean, we have 1,000 people here for 6 days, average 250 a day. Multiply that by 2, there's your number. So it's a wonderful event. But because of this virus, it's been altered. And I would tell you, most of the time, when you've had a plan for 25 years and then you alter it in a 2-month period, that's never usually comes out on your favor. But it's a wonderful event. They're looking at hosting. We received a 3-year bid 2 years ago. And so this is the second of our third year. Last year, the place was packed.
Yeah,
In fact, Board of Public Works closed Houseman, just because there were so many people. And so, issues of social distancing, trailers, my big fear is the rain has to get out of here this week because they don't have the hard surface parking. Plan B is going to South High School, and I provide shuttles for these people every day. I don't know about the rest of you, but shuttles are never good.
Well, especially in this environment.
Yeah, exactly, because you're going to limit the number of people, so that means we're waiting. So there's a lot yet to be determined on this event. And ultimately, the fear is they could come in the day before and say, it's not happening. I mean, if our governor would have a reversal and roll it back one, couldn't have it. That'd hurt us. I mean, because that would hurt us long term with negotiations through future contracts and other races. We're trying to get a combo. They have a dirt track, but they also have the ability to have a hard track. To have both of those on adjoining weekends would really be something, because then we'd have people staying for over 2 weeks. And that'd be a good thing in my world. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I love the fact that you take notes and call those seemingly little things out. Strive to present it as it should be presented. So if you read this, you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Mike and Calissa and Cheryl have been around long enough. I think
I don't think that they weren't questioning about what your budget was. It was more concern of what was happening with first tax, future revenues, what the impact would be possibly on the county budget if we couldn't draw.
Yeah, I brought this up to
Just to
Calissa
clarify.
because we are an anomaly, and I just
Yeah.
want everybody to know how that kind of goes
I'm
through.
sure that there might be a couple new ones that weren't with it.
Yeah. I will tell you, the next month for us is critical. All these sanctioning bodies that we solicit to deal with, it starts at the top with professional sports. How professional sports meanders through this next month is going to affect how the NCAA makes their decision. The fact that Nike came out before NCAA shocked me. I'm having dinner with all the upper crust of the IHSAA next Monday night at Bobby Cox's retirement, and after the dinner, we're all going to talk. I feel confident that within our own state, we'll have the ability to space the runners such, or even run in groups and let the timing be the deciding factor, but that'll be the IHSAA's call. But we're going to have a lengthy discussion after that celebratory dinner for Bobby. And he was good enough that 2 months before he leaves, he gives us another 5-year contract. And he told me the only reason he gave us 5 years is because that's what the board limits him to. So we're solid. I mean, if we can get this virus under control. But it's scary.
Again, Dave, I appreciate your time because I think that's really what we're trying to grasp for, because it's an overview of our community, and again, it would seem by all of us that your revenue stream would been hit the hardest of any of our others. But as it goes down to our innkeepers and our restaurant people, what have you, there's some of these restaurants that aren't going to reopen. What do we do on property tax base and et cetera? And it's just it's
Like I even
it's
worry about
it's
the
real.
future. I worry about the future. I think more people are going to work from home. I think this has changed things forever. I don't think you're going to see the building of office space as you've had in our past. And that is going to trickle down to a lot of different things. I don't know. It's a scary slope, really.
David, I think one thing that is, more imminent to worry about is getting the virus stopped.
Mhm.
I mean, I
That's the
worry.
only way consumer confidence is going to return.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know how many of us have kids this age. Mine's grown and gone, but travel ball, and again, I'm dating myself, but it used to be AAU ball, whether it's basketball, baseball. I drove by North Little League the other night. You couldn't have put another car in that parking lot, and yet I purposely drove through. It was so packed, you can't imagine.
And that is crazy.
That is crazy. And so at some point, we need more universal standards, whether it's federal, state, or local, because we're doing some things and we're not doing others. And so, I've even had the paper call me, and I said, look, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not, but that's an odd parent that we mask up. Now it's mandatory to mask up to go to the grocery store. And yet you go at 6 o'clock and watch your kid play ball for an hour and a half with everybody and their brothers sweating on you and sneezing and everything else. I would tell you 10% of the people have masks on. We got to get a handle on this. I mean,
What?
well, you've already had IU come out, conference only. The Notre Dame USC game's not going to play. I couldn't even, it would shock everybody in this room what one day's receipts from a Notre Dame USC game not played would be.
Here's a bulletin just from Vigo County School Corporation. They've amended their startup. They've amended it again.
Yeah.
You think they'll start? Next week they'll announce something else and
Right.
something else.
And so, Vicky, I think how that relates to the sports and the different extracurricular activities, band competitions, those have been squashed. We've had a long history with those. If they can't educate our kids in the classroom, I don't know how you can have extracurricular activities. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to prioritize, at least I feel, we have to prioritize education. And you're talking to a dyed-in-the-wool sports guy. I mean, it's scary.
You're playing
And so
live
I really believe the tale will be told on this year's tourism
in the next
by
2
about
weeks,
September
actually.
1. You're going to know.
I think it's by the end of July. I mean, this thing it's spreading like wildfire.
It is, but in Marion County certainly has more lockdown than here. They have more people.
Monroe County's they're doing it.
Yeah, and so you're seeing the universities kind of locked down, if you will, for lack of a better term. I think you're going to see that trickle down, and that's where the extracurricular activities that you ask about, it's those are going to be casualties of all of this, and I'm telling you, it's meant a lot of money to this community.
I know.
I mean, the things that we've done and the things that we have planned, that's the good news is that 5 million, we're good. We're about $1.5 million into our commitment already, but and I don't know that it'll ever go to zero. I mean, if it goes to zero, again, we've got bigger problems, but we'll have to scale back the things that we solicit for until we know what the revenue is going to be going forward. because at some point to, and that's veiled with the importance of the event, but I don't know. You know, one of the things that's been discussed that I've been very critical of is they've asked that porta-johns, and this was cross-country specific, that porta-johns be sanitized after every use. Now, one, I don't know who the person is that verifies that's sanitized to the point to where now you can enter. You've left, you can now enter. You're also gonna have to have somebody there, you know, God bless him, at Serve Pro, spraying that thing, whatever. But again, if somebody gets sick, how do you trace that back to whether I coughed on Jim or you got it moving the lever in the porta john? I mean, those are things that if they force us to do that, we're not going to spend $15,000 to do that, and so consequently, we'll decline the event, and that gets sad. And so there has to be alternatives. Another one that's kicked about that may be more reasonable is that each team would get their own, and then they would have to supply a representative, and they could choose whether they want to clean it between each use or not. We can't solve all that for everybody. I mean, that's not our role. Our role is to enhance the event, and cleanliness is, at the end of the day, is a personal thing. I mean, you know, we all pick and choose what we're doing and where we're going, and you know, I don't know. Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Hopefully we see a resurgence in sanity, and maybe if a vaccine gets developed or something happens, November, December, there'll be a silver lining somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey,
Let's hope so.
those two commissioners behind you, you know, they can implement that mask wearing. You should tell them.
Let's have a map.
We'll put the pressure on them.
Starting today. Thank
Well,
you,
Dave,
David.
did you bring your bucket of black paint with a big brush?
I did not.
It's tough, isn't it?
The truth is
Yeah.
scary.
It is. I mean,
The uncertainty.
you know, the outdoor activities, I mean, Griffin Bike Park has seen a lot of activity because you have that ability to be distant. And yet, you know, if it ever cools off a little bit and this virus is still going on, I would tell you they'll have to take additional protocols. The parking lots are big. You know, I mean, and so then the enforcement of those rules is going to take on another level. You know, you talk about having a grant writer. I heard that years ago, and I think one of the problems is how do you prioritize which department is most important. So that's where you almost have to contract out of each department so that you wouldn't have that, you know, I'm more important than you, I need this worse, that kind of thing. And I know you guys deal with that. Actually, that's probably the summation of the whole budgetary process, maybe. But I don't know. I don't envy that. You know, that being said, we've probably been a part of, I don't know, 5-6 grants for various, be it Griffin Bike Park, Butterfly Garden. We were matching funds on all those. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you, I really,
I think that.
I'm always a phone call away.
Yeah, you were
Thanks.
yesterday, weren't you?
Thanks for responding so quickly yesterday. Yeah.
Certainly.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the things you do, you know, you work very, very, very hard, and a lot of people in the community work very hard. But we enjoy what we're doing, and that makes it easier to do it. But now we can't even. Not much fun.
Sure. You know, one thing I will say for the good of the order, and you know, Jim does a great job. We've had a good relationship for a long time. You know, Melissa, Cheryl, all the old guard, us, have done this well, but about 3 or 4 years ago, and maybe every time I say that, Jim, it's 8, but the innkeeper's tax, I used to get a breakdown of each hotel. Now we just get a lump sum, and Jim and Nancy are the only two that can see it.
No, it's only Nancy.
Okay, so just the treasurer. Well, one of my concerns is, I mean, if you're talking about governing and looking over money, our office has offered, because we used to have a great system in place, all of us, to where we monitored that innkeeper's tax on a given month. Us three could tell you within $100 whether it was off or not. At 30 days, they got a letter from me. At 60 days, they got a letter from the county attorney. And then at 90 days, they filed. And that's with the legal statute in the state of Indiana. That doesn't exist now. And that's not to say Nancy's not doing her job, but I think Nancy needs some teeth to do the job even better in terms of having some kind of protocol to ensure. We've had a couple of, I'll call them problem children, for lack of a better term, for the 25 years I've been in this office. I just know they're not paying what they should be paying. It's just my gut. I could be totally wrong, but in the absence of any protocol in terms of how they look over that collection, I think that's something that should be implemented.
Are you speaking about hotels?
The innkeeper's tax.
The innkeeper, yeah.
Yeah, the collection comes in, and Nancy disperses it. We spend it. That's how it comes. I mean, that's how it works. It comes in through her office, but yet, if for no other reason, we had 3 people that were kind of knowledgeable of the situation, and now you just have one, and you haven't given her the full. And it's not your fault. It was a state mandate. But at some point, I think it needs to be looked into to where, and our office would be happy to bear any legal costs in terms of, an attorney going after the collection of funds we thought weren't submitted.
Well, that's what we were using was, his name down right, Shagley. When I was
TC Clary.
TC,
Yeah.
when they would get behind, we'd turn it over to TC, and I don't know
Check
if they're
it out.
doing that anymore or not.
They're not. And apparently, we may even have to appeal to the State Board of Accounts because that's kind of seemingly the way they want. TC, I couldn't tell you how many times that one of the hotels that I was referring to as a problem child would come in and pay a day or 2 before the filing. I mean, this went on 4 times a year for 20 years. If nobody's hammering it,
They're probably not.
probably more likely to cheat. I mean, I have no proof of that. I
But
I
they
like
could.
Nancy. I think she does a great job. Anytime I call her, she's, very forthcoming and seemingly on it. I just worry that short of that legal precedent of filing against them, that we're missing something. And that may even be food and beverage tax. We need to implement the same thing to where we have an attorney that's the backstop
Well,
that
with
ensures.
food and beverage, that's in the hands of the Department of Revenue. We don't really have any of,
They collect it, and
They
then send you a
collect it.
quietus, Jim.
yeah, they
Is that
collect
okay?
it.
And that's probably easier to track simply because it's part of the transaction. The hotel biz, especially the cheaper hotels, a lot of it's a cash transaction. And so I think there's always been a little bit of wiggle room going on. But that's just a comment. That may be way off base in this setting, but for what it's worth, I really think Nancy needs some legal backstop to ensure that everybody's paying, even if it's just a scare tactic.
Well, if, one thing, some counties, their hotel motel tax is paid to the Department of Revenue. and their tactic with sales tax and food and beverage, if you miss a month payment, then, 2 months later, you get a bill from them for about 5 times what it,
Yeah.
what it should have been.
Well, and
then
one thing,
that gets your attention and makes you file a return correctly.
well, let's hope then the state's doing more than I know. I think another reason I brought this up is we've now been getting, and I think it's been 10,000, 14,000, but that check we get from the state. I'm the CVB guy here in town, and even just in the last 2 weeks, I've learned 3 new B&Bs. So again, that's a new revenue stream that's never been around before, that it's gonna be tough to identify, govern, and ensure that they're paying the amount that they should be paying. Just thoughts. But in these days, if we're trying to maximize all the money this community receives, I kind of feel like that's something that ought to be implemented.
Yep,
So,
I agree.
for what that's worth.
Well, the key point also is that money is being paid by the consumer.
Yeah.
That entity is the collector. So that is in addition to the amount being charged for that lead.
Jim, I probably used to spend between $5 and $10 grand a year because we had to pay the attorney to file, and yet it was in 25 years it never went to court. They would always come in and pay, and I mean, which was kind of funny. I always thought. I mean, they milked it to the last day they could, and then they would come in so they didn't have to pay the penalty. Nobody's watching it. My gut is they're cheating on it a little bit. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks
All
for
right.
your insight.
I feel like we ought to applaud for everything we learned from you today.
See you, Dave.
Well, guys, we're
See you,
running.
man. Thanks for coming.
Would we want to have, do we want to take a break
No.
at midday, or do we
No,
want to?
we're not even gonna get lunch if we take a break.
Building maintenance. We're 45 minutes past, guys.
I have a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Now that Dave's got us all depressed.
Man, like I say, I'm gonna give him a big bucket of black paint.
Thank you.
Used to be fun working with him, but man,
Yeah, he's taking a heck of a hit.
oh my.
As you know, it's Tommy's first time to do the budget, and Mr. Schallberg's been around a long time, and Tommy's taken his place. So the budget pretty much is basically the same in most cases, Tommy.
Except for paint, glass, electrical, and plumbing supplies.
And it's actually less in a few places, if you guys want to go through them. Only thing that we're asking for this year, we got a vehicle last year, a truck. This year, what we're asking for, and it's in your package there, for snow removal, we're looking for the courthouse, and we're down here too, right? A small Ranger Polaris with a plow on it, and to put a spreader on it. We got the old John Deere Gator. Those are pretty much a thing of the past, pretty much wore out. And so in vehicles, we're asking for $26,000 to outfit one of those for the use here at the courthouse and the annex. So that's actually down. That'll take it down last year about $6,000 from the budget. More. Well, I mean, talking about the vehicle. 32 last year, that's 6,000.
32 was requested, 30 was adopted.
Huh?
It was like 30 was adopted.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, you requested 32, and they beat you down to 30.
okay.
Beat you down.
This is the adopted budget. It's 32 according to this form. Anyway, that's basically the vehicle outlay. 2 part-timers. Everything else pretty much stayed the same except for $11,000, up $3,000 each on electrical supplies and plumbing supplies. And then in building repair, increased that to 300,000. So we're up about $40,000 on the request for building repairs. Judy, have you got anything?
Nope, I was just following along to be sure you didn't miss anything I had.
Okay.
What's your plans with the building repairs, Brad?
Well, just basically, Tommy know better, but we got some units that are, got some problems we need to. Yesterday,
Norm Loudermilk was here and was talking about the juvenile center. Do you have any plans in the future for what could be happening inside or outside? Is that something we'll tackle?
We met with him, took a tour. Judy and I both took tours of the juvenile center. He gave us some ideas, and of course, he's created the new the way to create some money.
Yeah.
Which would be a big help.
Yeah.
But we did some things in there. We just did some things over there the other day, and redone the beds and stuff. Get done. But yeah, there'll be plans in that too.
Actually, just depend on how the council wanted to handle that, because years ago, they took all maintenance from all departments and put it under one. And then a few years back, they turned around and gave juvenile center some money.
Like
I know.
$7,500.
Little under, well, it was 7,000 at one point, I know, because we had something and they had, but anyway, so it would just depend on how the council wants us to do it, whether we would put that in our building repairs or not. Because what Tommy's asked for now is not taking in the juvenile center.
Nothing to do with
Whatever
that.
the juvenile center is, it depends on how you guys want to do that.
So it will be an additional.
It would be additional to what
Usually they
Tommy's.
spend their money,
And then
they
we-
run out of money.
Was that
Yeah.
like an emergency situation, the $7,000, or was that
I
just?
think it must have been, yeah.
I
just
think
small items.
I think originally it was put in for security stuff, cameras and all that stuff.
Yeah, there was something at
To
that time.
buy a fridge, something like that over there, a cooler. But, you know, when an air conditioner goes out, it comes out of our budget here on that. You're talking $7,000 wouldn't even cover it, so.
Yeah.
It is maintained through that budget. But he has some
Your-
things he wants to get done.
Yeah, your 2020 contractual services, are those finished for the year, or those continue on?
No, they continue.
Yearly?
In contractual services?
Yeah.
You have that?
Yep.
Okay. Those are continuous.
Okay.
And a lot of those aren't paid until like the end of the year, so then it looks like you're
Right.
keeping money you don't need, but it's not, that'll all go out.
And then your last thing is the Complete Outdoor Equipment Company. Is that your estimate for the Ranger?
That is.
Or were you going to get different quotes, or just
I tried to get 3 different quotes. They won't send me nothing. I called and asked them. They said, oh, we'll send it by email. They stuck. As soon as I get something, I can.
yeah, if you could, that'd be awesome.
We're just trying to get an idea.
Best bang for the buck.
Yeah, but the problem is, a lot of these places can't even get them.
Oh, I know. I have the same problem in my
It's
job. so,
crazy.
yeah.
We went into Thompson to look, see what they had, and they had very little to choose from. And Polaris told me that they were going to wait till be October, November before even they get any more in.
Wow.
Where are you gonna park this?
My house.
Okay.
And then my house the next day. Depends how much snow we get.
Purdue Extension is where we keep, they got a garage in the back there, and we keep our stuff back there.
All right.
Then hopefully.
Pretty handy.
Then possibly too, when the jail would, the Sally Port will not be full of stuff, we can park it and have room to park stuff in there.
Tommy, you know off the top of your head what you paid out of contractual services other? You've given us a nice breakdown for the contractual services, but not the other. Forget what comes out of that, don't you?
Tax service, other,
And I got our daily out of that, but I don't know if it's over here.
no, I
Shows
don't right
what-
off the top of my head. I don't.
Okay. You show what's been paid out of that account, Cheryl?
I've got it here.
That's what I was looking for. I left my notes.
No, I don't.
Hold on a minute.
I thought I had it.
Oh, no, that's just our,
No, I thought I had the
oh,
other one too.
I do, but I didn't bring it with.
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
Good.
Well,
A cleaner way. Whatever a cleaner way is.
Cleaner way
That'd be
is,
to clean the courthouse in the evening.
yeah.
That'd be
Oh,
the courthouse,
The
jail,
judges.
community correct. All the courtroom, common area.
Any other questions?
Did you discuss about cleaning the court chairs and all that stuff? Have you worked that out?
As far as having an extra person, no, we haven't. We really need to do that. Tommy's been looking into it and we're trying to figure that out because if we could get hire somebody as a contract or a company, then that could be turned into COVID.
For the care,
For
that
the
care
care.
money?
Uh-huh.
Some of those chairs I looked at are cloth, and that's not going to be
Yeah.
doable. Yeah. I want to be cheaper to just get, and better, safer, to just get some chairs that are either wood or, although you don't want to have people sitting in wood chairs all day, but
Yeah.
vinyl or something.
Yes, I was going to tell you too that Tommy's going to have to come to the council for extra money this year because he's down to $4,000 in building repairs. We're not even close to being over, but the COVID thing, putting all the plexiglass up, all the things we've had to do, supplies, so much cleaning supplies, and we also had to spend the money for the malware stuff this year out of some of the building repair and monies. So he's got $4,000 to run the whole budget for the rest of the year. So,
You should be getting reimbursement.
but you don't know when. We don't know when. So we're going to have to come to for extra money now because we're going to deplete the things. We talked to Jim today on the reimbursement on some of that stuff, but we've kept track of it all. We're going to work with because all the townships, everybody else is going to come through the county, so we need to get started on that.
Now, I noticed
But it's going to take a person to do that.
the former,
It's a pretty big thing
Just add that to your list of duties.
to get our money.
And on that.
She's got enough duties.
A clarification on Cleaner Way that cleans at the courthouse now. We're talking about a person that would go in every courtroom after every thing that, that has happened there and go in and wipe down and everything, just like they're doing counters here. We do not have that person, so it's, if a company did it, they would have to have a dedicated person to work all day right there to do that. So that's, we could do it either way, but it's the Cleaner Way is the one that does all the floors and all those kind of bigger areas. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I was already asking, you know, why not just have them to clean more? Well, they can, but they do all their work at night when there's no one at the courthouse. We're talking about someone that's there when the people are there, just like our custodians are here doing.
Judy, let me ask you about the custodians here. What payroll are they on?
Is,
They're on my page.
I mean, they're working their guts out around here and cleaning now. I mean, I notice they clean the doors all the time. They're cleaning, you know, they're wiping off the trash cans, wiping off everything all the time. I mean,
but that's what we don't have going on at the courthouse.
I mean,
We
I-
have two janitors there now, but they're doing the same thing these janitors here are doing. They're trying to do inside all the offices where all the employees are sitting, they're trying to take care of them.
how many janitors do you have in the courthouse and here?
5.
5.
Got 3 down here and 2 at the courthouse.
They're really working up a storm.
Plus
I
they
mean,
have to run mail and everything for the courthouse. They run mail here at the annex. They're busy.
they really are. They're working overtime, I think.
Did we figure out what the cost was from Brad Newman for ServPro being here during the elections?
Brad knows that.
No, I don't.
Oh,
Not
for
for the
him.
election. I
Oh,
haven't
Yeah.
heard that
election,
yet.
Yeah.
Because would that be something considered,
For
you know,
the
maybe
COVID
ServPro can offer a guy
reimbursement.
40 hours a week at the courthouse, you know, 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 or whatever.
Oh, that'd probably be pretty expensive, but, I mean, it's possible.
Well, that's why I was asking if,
Yeah.
how much it costs.
What about a temp service?
What?
Temp service?
I think
I
there's
don't know if they
another,
do that.
You gotta be really careful with being in the courts and stuff too.
yeah.
That's the only, they're gonna be going in the courtroom
The
after
officers.
every trial or during recess or whatever, they're going there and clean everything. So have attorney stuff sitting out. Some people go through the temp for, like that, unfortunately.
How, do they have, courts are in session now, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
they're-
Yeah, trials.
This is the only county where they are.
So how, what's their, what are they doing right now?
Trial, they're good trials.
Doing the best they
Doing
can.
the best they can. I mean, it's a learning process for everybody up there, right? Our janitors working their butts off, doing what they can do to.
Do one thing and let something else go. I mean, that's not a good policy to have, but
It's
that's the way
not.
it's happening
What are you,
right
are you
now.
just like earmarking your receipts when you turn them in to Jim and
Right.
Cheryl?
Everything's
All the
coded
claims are-
COVID-19.
Coded.
I've had my maintenance staff, man, go in and get trash because she's been busy cleaning and sanitizing. And I've had to pull them guys off things to get trash out of the courthouse if we don't have trash.
Crazy time.
I mean, I'm just concerned that they're working too hard. I know that they're exhausted. I know they are. When will you have some help for them? I mean, are you going to get some?
Respond.
Get somebody to respond to us.
So you've got people that have applied, or are you waiting on that, or are you just waiting for the new position to be created, or?
We're in a position to be created for that.
We just hired somebody that started last week at the courthouse.
They had a
Who was
vacancy.
out for a while.
Can you pay their salary or hourly wage out of the CARES Act money, or no?
No, it's gotta be
No,
something
that's
in
a position.
addition that wasn't planned,
Gotcha.
till a existing position, I don't think would work. Now, if that guy's working overtime to clean chairs or whatever, the overtime
That would be
could,
CARES.
would be eligible.
Now, if they're only doing that, I mean, I don't know how that would work.
It
Well,
has
yeah,
to
if
be
they were
some,
sanitizing
it has to be
chairs.
something that
They weren't doing it before.
wasn't budgeted for previously. And
But could you
that
create a
salary-
position, though?
Yeah, that salary was budgeted.
I think you could create a position to sanitize. Couldn't keep it, but you could create it, temporary.
That's
CARES
the reason
is
we
only,
figured it would be
right now, it's
easier
only through the
to
end of the
hire.
year, right?
Yeah, just a temporary,
It's
just to
only
hire
through the end of the year right
Uh-huh.
now. CARES.
Yeah. From March 30th or something through the end of the year.
And we're not the only ones in this boat, so that's the reason it's kind of hard to get
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
because everybody's having to do this.
We'll try to get somebody to work for you and introduce them to a climate of constantly cleaning other people's things.
Right.
And they want to do that.
Well,
You know.
Servpro probably would be eligible to be paid, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's why I asked about maybe ServPro, if you were able to get them as a contractual service to be paid by potentially CARES money because we're sanitizing because our courts are in session. I didn't know if that was a viable option
It
or
would
not.
have to be somebody that they would just assign to the courthouse to take care of the court, period. However they,
I think when we sprayed the courthouse, the annex, and the juvenile center, you were talking about $8,000
Was
one
it?
day.
Wow.
that was
It's not
without
cheap.
people, that was just the building.
And that's a lot of square footage, you know,
It really is.
cover floors, and all the floors and everything, and they'd wipe down and do all that
To
stuff.
the
too.
elevator,
5 minutes per
to
building.
the staircase.
How long?
About 25 minutes per building,
Wow.
$8,000.
Wow.
So I don't think you really want to contract that.
Yeah.
$8,000 a, what, for how
many
a
hours?
day or what?
They were in this building about 30 minutes, he said, and about 30 minutes in the others.
And
It was
then
$8,000,
juvenile,
so an
they
hour and a
did
half, they got $8,000.
juvenile, they did the jail too, part of the jail.
Oh, yeah, part of it.
We went in there, but 911 did that, but. I
Wouldn't it be
think the
nice
total-
if you get your insurance to cover that?
Yeah,
Let's goodness and go do that.
I know.
total bill was about 8,000 for all the areas.
Never
Blind
mind.
demand.
Yep.
Well, I imagine they have considerable liability insurance.
Well, and they had,
Oh, I would-
yeah, and the chemical and the equipment to spray and do all that stuff.
So, that's where we're at.
Does the county have liability, would you say?
Pardon me?
Would the county have liability, would you say? Would we
Yeah.
have liability for jurors, for instance?
I
If they
don't
come
know.
into a jury and contract, COVID?
You mean, would that be covered under our liability insurance? Well, we have something that came from our liability insurance explaining how all that works, so, yeah. John sent us, John Wright, who has that.
Mercy.
Are you guys
Any
glad
more?
you're retiring or what?
My wife?
Are you glad you're retiring or what?
Yes, I am.
I said that's the only good thing, I told these guys that's the only good thing that's come out of this COVID, because I kept
I do.
worrying about, how am I ever gonna retire? I'm used to going. This COVID has helped, because I've had to stay home so much.
Hey, I do it now.
Yeah, now I got a plan. Yeah, I'm gonna cook.
Well, thank you guys.
All right, thanks, guys. We shall recess
Hey,
for
you guys wanna get a
a
lunch
while.
break?
Yeah, take a break. Yep.
Are we gonna talk
Brad.
about our schedule in light of some of the information we've had today about what we know and when we know it? Are we gonna try to finish up? We know how we're gonna get, y'all know how you're gonna get from here to the council
To
meeting
digest
today?
this information?
And is early better or is later better?
Yeah.
This is about how we always do it.